It takes a lot of courage to reach out for help. Thanks to all the first responders for all the hard work you do out there to protect and keep us safe and to serve the public. Today's video is talking a bit about trauma and traumatic injury for first responders and a lot of opportunities out there to get assistance with the recovery process. What makes it so hard for us to do that? You might even have a hard time receiving a compliment like thanks for reaching out or thanks for having the courage to look into how to get help for a traumatic recovery or traumatic injury. Imagine just having a hard time receiving a compliment. Well, that's how trauma affects people. It impacts every aspect of your daily life. There's no quick, easy fix either. People know that, so it's hard to reach out for help because I don't know if I have the time, I don't know if I have the money, I don't know if I want to make the time. Will it be too personal? All these questions go on. As you think about these things, monitor yourself and see what are the symptoms that you're noticing. You know what they are. Sleepless nights, nightmares, pop-ups in the middle of the night waking you up, or pop-ups in the mind of traumatic incidents or calls that you've been on. Our mind's not designed to put those away, not designed to put them away and forget them. So when they're not reconciled well, or when we have difficulty reconciling them, not you, this is not a you issue, this is the mind. The data in the mind is not being filed or coded or stored well because it's loaded with that kind of severity, that kind of, even if you look very calm and relaxed as you're supposed to, first line responder wants to calm everybody else down, inside you know what can be going on in your mind and in your body. Tension and, oh my word, this is awful. We don't want to say it, but we hold that in. Some authors think that's trapped energy, that we have trapped energy from traumatic injury, that things happen over and over and the body holds on to it. So our body's response, when you think of frontline response or first response, is fight, flight, or freeze. Some people might get more angry and upset as a response to traumatic injury. Some people might withdraw and become more recluse and isolated. Others might just freeze and not be able to do anything. And then there's the one who runs or wants to run. So the prize of doing this work and reaching out and opening up is there are many strategies, many approaches, and many therapists out there helping in the helping profession to help those that are suffering. You frontline responders that are suffering, you specifically suffering with issues that won't go away. Sometimes they get buried, and a lot of times we have that thought, I can handle this, I can handle this. Why is it all of a sudden now that it's coming out? Well, think about compound stress. You get one call, then you get another bad call, then you hear a few calls from a friend, then you get another call, and it could be 2, 3, 5, 7 years later, and then your mind starts thinking, why now? It's the accumulation or cumulative stress that starts to wear on the body. And when we have enough issues that build up in our mind and our body, and traumatic injury does affect the body remembers how it felt at those moments, and that gets stored, and then the mind starts to think a lot of negative things, even about yourself, because it seems like you can't control your mood now, maybe a little more anxious, a little more nervous, difficulty eating, sleeping, you might notice weight loss or gain. A lot of things can happen. Your motivation can start to drop off. These are very, very common signs and symptoms of traumatic injuries. And the mind also, with respect to getting help, can go into, nah, there's no help for that. Or no, I don't need that. Other people need that. This is not a sign of weakness. Imagine physically, if your leg got hit over and over and over, and then you wouldn't wonder, why after 22 hits, it broke. Think of the psychological damage of trauma as the same. Wounding, 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 and then all of a sudden, you don't want to go to work, or you're noticing obsessive thinking about traffic, about safety, security, possibly for your family. Those can be some of the ways your mind is actually taking what you're seeing and what you're holding on to and transferring it to another area of your life in a hypervigilant way. Judith Herman, great author of Trauma and Recovery, talks about hypervigilance. So we can get really, really focused on something, and your family and friends might say, why are you so... That's hypervigilance, one of the symptoms. Pop-ups, she calls them intrusive thoughts. So they're pop-ups. When you're just going about your day and a scene comes to mind or an awful thing comes to mind, notice how your body feels. The heart rate, the blood pressure, the tension. There are many relaxation exercises you can use as well. Box breathing, guided imagery, calm place exercises, so that you can bring the body down to the calm state, allow clarity of thought, so you can work through some of these things. EMDR is an amazing therapeutic approach. It's weird though, strange. When I first heard about it, using eye movements, that's what EM is, eye movements, and desensitizing the intensity of the distress you're feeling, and then reprocessing the memory so that it sits better in the mind, and then we also train the body to respond differently during those events. As you're speaking or talking about traumatic injuries, training the body to stay in a relaxed state is also part of the recovery process. EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, we have a couple of introductory videos on that you could watch. There's also an interesting kind of exercise that if you have an immediate or acute trauma, we can use what's called CID, or critical incident desensitization. Using a number of rounds of eye movements, we can assist people, and you could assist people with this skill, at bringing down their distress or their disturbance within 3 to 5 minutes. You can bring it down 40 or 50% using this technique. So critical incident desensitization is a great skill that I wish all first responders knew how to bring into their work, because you can help people that are going through distress when you arrive on a scene in just a few minutes by using this technique of breathing along with eye movement. Really helps lower the disturbance for the vast majority of people that have gone through a crisis in the last few hours or the last few days. So thanks again for even thinking about, what's going on with you? What's going on with your body and your mind? Why are relationships struggling? A lot of people lose relationships because they hold on to this and don't really find the right help or get the right help to assist with recovery. So good for you for reaching out. If you have any questions, definitely give us a call, or someone else who's an expert and trained in trauma and trauma recovery. Check out the book I mentioned, Judith Herman's Trauma and Recovery, or Bessel van der Kolk's book, 2014, The Body Keeps the Score. A lot more work has been done in the last 20 years on how the mind, the brain, the body, and our behaviors get off. Almost like when I threw my back out a few weeks ago, I was walking crooked. Well, nobody will see you walking crooked. However, it can feel like you're walking a little crooked in your relationships with your colleagues, a little extra grumpy, a little extra sad or quiet. Watch for those. Those are symptoms. Those are some signs that there's something to be worked on. Not that there's a weakness in you. There's something to be worked on. So remember, you're amazing. It's the problem that you want to work on, and you're not the problem. So thanks again, first line responders, for being out there and helping us and for taking the hits for us. I just wish that it was part of your contract that you would get this type of help, 6, 8, 10 times a year, just part of the contract, so that there wouldn't be this stigma to go and get the help. Well, of course, there is a stigma associated still. Well, maybe less than 20 or 30 years ago, but let's say there's still a stigma out there about going and getting help for our head, for our brain. It's more than that. It's not just for your head, it's for your spirit, for your health and wellness overall, your body, your mind, and your spirit. And that stigma can really block people from getting help for 5, 10, 15 years sometimes, even closer to retirement before people might reach out. I have a close neighbor that's struggling because of the very issue over and over, seeing this and being traumatized and not being as open to reaching out for help. So that person is now helping other people to start to think about getting help on a more consistent basis when you are a first-line responder. So if you notice that stigma and that negative thinking pattern around, no, that means I'm weak, that means I'm not good enough, flick that stinking thinking off your shoulder. It has nothing to do with you and your weakness, no differently than if we had an injury physically. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean there's a problem with you. It just means you've got an injury that now needs to be healed. Same thing with a psychological injury from traumatic events, traumatic experiences, and these can stem right back to childhood, some of these experiences. You might be wondering why some people respond a little better to treatment, why some people might take longer in therapy, why some people might be first to go to therapy instead of second or third to go to therapy. Well, when you have traumatic injury from childhood, that will be the cumulative stress. That will be tacked on to the experiences you're seeing now. So some people will have way more traumatic injury piled up in their bodies and their minds than others. So we want to be really cautious about it, comparing ourselves to anyone else or judging others or ourselves for reaching out for help. Thanks again for your courage. If you like the video, hit the like button. It's an anonymous way you can help more people see this video and get this information. And even share this video with other people you might know that can benefit from this type of information. Thank you.